This is how I would coach kids who have different personalities. And we see this a lot. It's usually the dads who say, oh, if I could only duplicate that one. If he or she had my personality and not mom's personality, they would be amazing. And I'm like, not necessarily true. And then you look at someone like Cale Sanderson, who's a pretty laid back guy. I think he says like 3 words a dual meet. He's the best Division I wrestling coach in history of America. Never lost a match in high school, never lost a match in college, and he won the Olympics. So, if only he had a super ultra psycho personality, he could have been even better. No, that's not true. I'll tell you a story about a guy who went 44-0 as a sophomore. Years ago, we had a young man. He was a freshman. I had just moved back from Texas, quit my job. My wife quit her job. He had 2 little kids, sold a nice house in Texas, started from scratch. She made $8 an hour, and I took a job making $16,000 a year as a private coach. And my family thought I was stupid. There was like 2 family interventions about how I should be a real man and not try to chase, get a job, get some benefits, right? All that stuff. But I made it work. But the bottom line is we quit and started over. Well, so I used to do private lessons, and I did it all just to try to, because when you win, your phone rings. This is America, and this is sports. When you win, your phone rings. It's very simple. So I had to prove that I could help people win. And I don't do private lessons anymore. I'm too busy. But our coaches do. But so we had a guy, and his dad's still my friend. I'll just say his name, Aaron Anion. He's a wonderful guy. He's a super hard charging guy, ultra successful. I mean, great business, great family, financially successful. I mean, he's just good. Well, his son, Aaron Jr., was kind of chill and laid back. I'm like, dude, why don't you just let me coach Aaron? Don't even talk to him. And the kid went from, I don't think he qualified for state as a freshman. If he did, he didn't win a match. Then the next year he's 44-0 in Class 4 in Missouri, which is very difficult. State champ. Well, just because I let the kid be a kid, be your personality. You have to take, so I'm like 5'5", on a tall day, and I had to make that work for wrestling. And I did. Now, when I was cutting way down, I was a tall wrestler. But when I went up to 126 back in the day, I was a short wrestler. But the guys were slower. So the wrestling changes. So I had to do with what I got. So let's pretend that you're 6'2", and you're wrestling 140 pounds. Okay, make it work. What if you're 5'2", and you weigh 170, and you're going to cut down to 160? Make it work. Terry Brands, Tom Brands, Brandon Slay, Olympic champion, Kerry Colap, 4-time world medalist. They all made it work. They're shorter than me. Every single one of those guys, I think. So you have to make it work. You can't make yourself grow 18 inches. Okay. You also cannot make yourself, you can't change your personality. It's just how you're born. Sure, does your upbringing and environment have something to do with it? Probably a little bit, but for the most part, you're not going to change it. So let's say, just like you're tall and skinny, and you have no fast twitch muscle fiber, you're kind of a slow wrestler. There's been some Olympic champions and people who are slow. Kendall Cross is one of them. There's videos out there on the internet where he's talking about how slow he is, but he's an Olympic champion, so he's done pretty well. He had to figure out a way to wrestle. He doesn't wrestle like Jordan Burroughs. He does not wrestle. So if you're not fast, go trying to wrestle fast. If you're not a freak of nature power wrestler, don't try to wrestle like a freak of nature power wrestler. If you can't shoot from 11 foot away like Jordan Burroughs, and you can't jump 9 foot in the air, don't wrestle in such a way that requires you to shoot from 11 foot away. Do something different. Personality is much the same. So you can't look at your kids and say, oh, if only they were like me, they would be Olympic champion. No, because you're probably not Olympic champion either. So, or you have one kid who's just a special kid. Maybe they're special, you know. There's a famous coach, and he goes, for you to be successful is going to take only 30 units of output a week. Now you're going to have to put in 150 output units of work a week. You're going to have to study hard in math if you want to get an A in math. Can you get an A in college algebra? You should be able to. You might have to study harder, right? My wife has a math degree. She doesn't have to study. She's good at it. Some people have to study. So I would like to see you and say, okay, I can't shoot from 11 foot away like Jordan Burroughs, so I'm going to choose not to be that way. And if your personality is such, just don't try to be, you know, psycho warrior wrestler. Maybe you wrestle a different style. Maybe you're more a man without a lot of emotion on the wrestling mat. That works for a lot of people. Now, back to if you have a special kid. Maybe you have a special kid, but their personality is probably not like yours, or not like every great wrestler has his personality. It's not true. So I think sometimes we have a special kid, and then we assume that everything about him is just warrior or special. If you really isolate that young man or young lady, they're probably not that much different than the other kids. They probably maybe have some emotional maturity, some physical maturity. Maybe they are a little bit more aggressive by nature. That's a big part of pee-wee sports. And I always use the word pee-wee because it diminishes. Because I think pee-wee sounds like 2-year-olds. And I love youth wrestling. But I also know that as long as you have the skills, I want to watch you drill under our system and drill like a machine, so your mom and dad's jaw flop open at practice. You may not qualify for state until you get older, because you don't have the emotional. Some kids are more mature emotionally, mentally, physically. Kerry Colott says, I know I won a lot as a kid because I was just stronger than everybody else. I'll admit it. If your kids are just stronger than everybody else, they can be the crappiest wrestler. Now, you might think that you're not going to say that. You're like, oh my God, they're going to be in the Olympics. I'm going to buy my plane tickets now. And I'm like, don't buy too soon. They're only 8, okay? They got 2 decades. They might make the Olympics, but let's just hold off real quick. Because if you listen or you read the book, The Tipping Point, I believe it's a tipping point, they talk about in Canada, where they have government sports, they pick their elite track hockey players at age 9 and 10. And the statistic is this: out of all of the kids placed on the elite track, they're handpicked as being special. Special human right here before me. So something like 87% are all 10. Actually, I think it's more like 97% or 10. And 87% of those 10-year-olds were all born January, February, March. They're all born within 3 months. So not only did the 9-year-olds get cast aside as not special, go play some YMCA hockey. For you, it's just a hobby because you suck and you're never going to be great. Get out of here, sucky boy hockey player. Now gather around, you special 10-year-olds. Well, guess what? Out of those special 10-year-olds, they're all born within like 75 days of each other. They're the oldest of the oldest. And so the whole concept of this chapter in the book, which was mind-blowing, was just think how many great hockey players they're pissing away because they declare them as they don't have it. So understand one thing. If your kids have a certain personality, they can make it work. Zane Rutherford was a 3-time NCAA champ and now a world champion for Penn State. They say the guy is so nice of a human being, you wonder why he's even in a combat sport. Literally will just pull his shirt off his back for a stranger. They say, the dude's so nice. He's one of the kindest human beings ever. Now, he'll break your back in a wrestling match, so I was like, they're kidding me. I thought this was the biggest jerk in college wrestling when I watch him. He literally tries to hurt people. They're like, oh no, he's a nice guy. Look at Cale Sanderson. Super nice guy, very devout Mormon. I don't think he's ever sipped caffeine. You know, he's just a super nice guy. I'm sure he doesn't cuss, doesn't raise his voice, never lost a high school match, never lost a college match. All right? Won the Olympics. So, what you do is when you keep telling your kids and you're like, you're special, you guys and girls need to be like him, be ferocious like him, and me, be like us. You're making those kids feel like crap, and you're forever damaging them because they feel broken. They're like, why do I want to do this crap? Why would I want to do this sport when all dad says is, well, then that one little kid walks around like he's the top dog of the family, because he kind of is, because dad kisses his ass. I'm like, dude, he's freaking 8. You don't kiss a 8-year-old's butt, right? And it's gonna probably wear off. And a lot of his, or maybe her, ultra success in wrestling has a lot to do with just their emotional maturity and their natural aggressiveness and their strength, and maybe they have a bit more God-given athleticism. Now, does God-given athleticism matter? I think in wrestling, not so much. I can underhook you and leg ride you and take your athleticism away. And if you're outside like Jordan Burroughs, they just touch the mat on him, right? So you can take their athleticism away through body position. Now, I think athleticism is important in like the raw sports, like track and field. An Olympic sprinter, you got to be, if you're 9 foot tall, you'll be a multi-million-dollar basketball player, even though you're probably clumsy and can't walk. So certain sports, you're just born that way, right? You're 6'8", you're 380, you're muscular. You're probably going to be a multi-millionaire playing football. Now you got to have some super raw athleticism for that as well. Not that those sports are low skill level, but they're not as high skill level as gymnastics, jiu-jitsu, Olympic diving, wrestling. There are certain sports that are just so technically advanced and they take years. There are sports of skill and reps, right? So in those kind of sports, maybe a little bit less God-given athleticism matters. But in wrestling through tactics, I can take your athleticism away from you. And so I think that's important too. But those kids who are special, just because they're easy to coach, doesn't mean that the other kids that you have are broken or, if only this, So you don't want to do that to your kids. You want to rise above it and become a tremendous coach and help them to develop so they can win also. How about J.J. Holmes? His dad, they moved from Maryland to Texas back in the late 90s when I was a coach. And I was like, James was my buddy. And he was like, he just passed away, by the way. What a great man. He was like, Coach, I'm going to take JJ out from under my wing and I'm going to put him under your wing. Undefeated state champ as a sophomore, and he beat the number 8th ranked guy in America in the Texas State semis like 18-3 or something. It was a demolishing, and I predicted it because I was like, this guy's going to just destroy him. We just let him alone. He felt confident around me because I wasn't always bad-mouthing about how he wasn't going to make it. So, I've got experience with this, and, share this, like it, subscribe. PurlerWrestling.com. Get our online academy, competition camps, summer camp, private team camps. We come to you, you make 5, 10, 15 grand for your team. We sold out the past 3 years in a row. We're going to sell out this summer too. And of course, we have weekly academy. So we'd love to have you. PurlerWrestling.com.